So I have this idea that I think would be a fun exercise between friends. Basically, we would make decks throughout Magic's history and play them on Cockatrice together. This is somewhat hard to describe how I want to do it exactly, so I'll instead start with an example. Here I have listed an example of some of the first games that we would play. For example, for the first game, we would use alpha, beta, and unlimited sets only, aka the first core set. The reason why I included all three is because besides some minor differences, those three sets are all the same. From there, for game 2, we would add in Arabian Nights, thus expanding the card pool. After that, for game 3, we add in Antiquities. For game 4, we would drop Core Set and add in Revised Edition. The reason why I would do it like this is because Revised Edition has most of the same cards that Core Set does, just with some overpowered cards cut out and some additional cards added in. And on this would go, adding in more sets, removing older sets, and I'll get to the specifics later on which sets would be added and which wouldn't. Additionally, this example is open to edits. It's not locked in stone, and I'm open to feedback. We would use current rules in errata, so if a card says bury it, instead we'd look at what the actual errata for that card is, which is usually sacrifice, or send it to the graveyard, or something along those lines, or tap, or add a counter. You know, the rules have been eroded a lot over the years, so it makes sense to use the modern rulings on cards. Additionally, we're limited to current rules, so 4 copies of a card, besides basic lands, etc. No antes, you know, the drill. Additionally, we would play these games without today's ban list. Instead, ban cards that are would be legal as long as the set that they're printed in is in the current rotation. So for example, if in Unlimited they had Time Walk, right? It was a really strong card, but it's legal to play. You can make a deck using Time Walk and you can play it as long as the core set is in. If it's reintroduced in Revised Edition, you can play it there, etc. But eventually it will rotate out and you can no longer play that card. So, for example, you would look through the cards that are available for the set of the game. Let's say Game 5 has Arabian Nights, Antiquities, Revised Edition, and Legends sets. You would look through the cards that are available in those sets and make a deck. We'd probably be playing 60-card deck and not Singleton or Commander, just because, especially for earlier sets, the availability of commanders isn't that large, and for some of those earlier games, you might not have as much card variety to make a Singleton deck like Commander that feels good. So I think 60-card deck or more, but 60-card minimum is a good place to start. Additionally, to spice things up and prevent someone from playing essentially the same deck for multiple games in a row, it's encouraged that each game you play a different color or combination of colors from what you played last game. This rule is up to interpretation, as splashing in a few cards from another color would technically count, but the rule is more in place for the spirit of playing something different each game. So for example, if you play black-green your first game, you have to play something different for game 2. Either you drop green, you drop black, or you add in another color, or you can even switch it up entirely. Say you play black-green during your first game, during the second game, maybe you then want to play red-blue, or colorless. There's no limitations there. Just don't play black-green again, because it will get stale. From there, I'm not entirely certain on how many sets to include for each game. Many sets, especially expansion sets in blocks later in Magic's history, are designed to be played best with some of the sets printed before them. But early core sets were mostly just reprints. For now, I think that manually setting which sets will be available for each game is the best option. I think that ideally, once we get into more modern Magic sets like Lorwyn or Mirrodin and then on, I think it's best to go with about 7 sets in each rotation. This gives you a wide variety. It gives you 2 expansions to choose from for each game, and between those 2 expansions, there's multiple ways to make a deck. Maybe that's too many sets, but you'll have played with the previous 6 sets before you get to the 7th set, so it's up to discussion, up to debate. The idea here is to keep the games fresh, but also not to limit deck building potential too much. So I am interested to hear what your feedback for that is. And lastly, I just want to know what you think. Are you interested in this idea? What kind of tweaks would you want me to do to make it fun? We could potentially turn it into some kind of a tournament, or we could just, me and another player can just do these games. I'm open to ideas. Whatever you think would be the most fun, however many people are interested. They can be one-on-one games. We can spice things up and occasionally do two-headed giants. Whatever you think might be fun. If you're interested, please let me know. And thank you for your time.